The chandeliers in the Langford Gallery didn't just hang. They glowed like captured moons, scattering light across polished marble floors. Designer gowns skimmed the ground, tuxedos glided past, and the air smelled like old money wrapped in floral arrangements and overpriced champagne. This was the Langford Gallery Spring Benefit in Chicago, the night where the city's elite pretended generosity was the same as justice. 24-year-old Maya Ellis wove between them, invisible in black slacks, crisp white shirt, and a catering vest that didn't quite fit. A silver serving tray balanced on her hand like it was an extra limb. Years of late shifts and double shifts had carved that skill into her muscles. No one looked her in the eye. They never did. Against her deep brown skin, a small pendant caught the light whenever she moved. A silver disc etched with a compass star wrapped in a crescent arc, hanging from a thin chain at her throat. Old, worn, loved in a way nothing else she owned had ever been. A woman's voice sliced through the low murmur. "Isn't it a bit much for the help to wear jewelry? Especially something that flashy?" Glasses paused mid-air. Heads turned. The judgment moved faster than the air conditioning. Maya's fingers flew instinctively to her pendant. The only object she'd had since before she had a name, before she even knew she was supposed to belong to someone. Then everything stopped. Near the center of the room, on a small raised platform beside a podium, Beatrice Langford turned. 82 years old, white hair swept into a precise twist, silver gown, the kind of posture money buys and grief hardens. Her champagne flute slipped from her hand. It hit the marble and exploded, shards and bubbles splashing her heels. Her face went white. She stared at Maya. No, she stared at the necklace. Her lips moved without sound. "That's not possible." The room didn't yet understand what was happening. But every set of eyes followed the line of Beatrice's stare. 3 days earlier, Maya's apartment, Southside Chicago. Third-floor walk-up, peeling paint, radiator that hissed more than it heated, 470 square feet of survival, but it was hers. Nursing textbooks carpeted the second-hand coffee table, pathophysiology, pharmacology, pediatric care. Finals in 2 weeks, 2 jobs, 1 body, 0 margin for error. On the table sat a battered manila envelope. Maya's entire past fit inside it. She opened it the way some people opened old wounds, knowing exactly what was there, hoping something had changed. It never did. Birth certificate. Infant female, last name Ellis. Parents, unknown. Location found, St. Bartholomew Medical Center, Chicago. Date, June 18, 2002. Note, abandoned near the ER entrance. A single photo had been slipped in under the paperwork years ago. A picture of the necklace. With it, a yellowing post-it in careful cursive. "This was pinned to your blanket when they found you. I kept it safe until I could give it back. You were never nothing. Mrs. Carter." Evelyn Carter, her foster mother from ages 10 to 16. The only person who'd ever felt like home. Taken too soon by cancer. Maya ran her thumb over the engraved compass star on the pendant. 4 points, a crescent surrounding it like an embrace. Underneath, tiny numbers worn from time. 05.31.02. The date meant nothing to the system. It meant everything to her. Her roommate appeared in the bedroom doorway holding a mug. Talia Ramos, 24. Fellow nursing student. Brown skin, curly hair piled in a messy bun. The kind of friend who knew when to tease and when to keep quiet. "You're doing it again?" Talia said softly. Maya didn't look up. "Doing what?" "The necklace autopsy. Same file, same engraving, same mystery." "It means something," Maya murmured. "This isn't cheap. Someone paid real money for it. Custom engraving, solid silver." Talia shrugged. Maybe your birth mom was loaded and had a breakdown. Or maybe she was running from something. Either way, it's finals week, babe. The only mystery that matters is, will we pass pharmacology? Maya exhaled, closed the file. Either way, I still have to go to work. Rent won't cry itself into being paid. But the necklace stayed on. It always did. In 23 years, she had never taken it off. Not for gym class, not for showers, not for clinicals, not for anyone. Tomorrow wasn't going to be the first time. 2 days earlier, catering office, north side, basement office, smelled like burnt coffee and stress. Harold Dixon, mid-50s, thinning hair, button down that had given up halfway through the day, waved her in. Maya, sit. You're not in trouble. For once. She dropped into the chair. You only say for once when you're about to ask me to do some impossible shift, Harry. He slid a folder across the desk. Langford Gallery Spring Benefit. Saturday night. Big donors, big money, big tips. Double hourly rate. The number in her head shifted from panic to maybe I can breathe next month. She tried not to let her hope show. What's the catch? Full black attire, hair neat, no visible tattoos, and... He pointed at a line on the paper. No jewelry except simple studs. These people notice everything. They complain about everything. Maya's hand rose unconsciously to her pendant. Even this? Harold's eyes followed her fingers. Especially that. I'm serious, kid. One fussy donor complains, we lose the Langford account. That's half my payroll. She nodded, but her fingers wrapped tighter around the chain. Got it. She meant, I understand. Not, I agree. Across town at the edge of Lake Michigan sat the Langford family estate. 30 rooms of history and regret. In a quiet study lined with leather-bound books and framed photographs, Beatrice Langford stared up at a painting above the fireplace. A young woman laughed from the canvas. Light brown hair fell in loose waves. Dark green dress. Around her neck, a silver pendant. A compass star wrapped in a crescent arc. Rachel Langford, 1979-2002. Beatrice's only child. Dead 23 years. On Beatrice's lapel, a matching brooch gleamed. Same design, same engraving on the back. 05-3102. Her fingers traced the metal like a ritual. Rachel would have adored this foundation work, Beatrice murmured. Evan Clark, 38, her chief of staff, stood nearby with a folder full of speeches and financial briefs. Loyal. Tired. The only one who dared gently interrupt her spirals. She'd be proud of what you've built. The Langford Children's Initiative has changed thousands of lives. Beatrice's gaze didn't leave the portrait. I couldn't save hers. Or her babies. The room went quiet. Everyone in Beatrice's orbit knew the story in pieces. Rachel, 7 months pregnant. A rainy night. A delivery truck. St. Bartholomew Medical Center. Brain trauma. Emergency C-section. A baby girl. Declared stillborn. Beatrice never saw the child. The doctors told her it was better that way. The necklace Rachel had worn into the hospital disappeared that night. Private investigators. Rewards, lawyers, nothing brought it back. Or the baby. Or the old version of herself. Tomorrow, Beatrice would stand in front of Chicago's richest families and announce a $400 million commitment to children in foster care, abandoned infants, and youth aging out of the system. It was meant to be the closing of a chapter. Instead, it was the beginning of something else. 2 women, 2 lives, 1 piece of silver. Tomorrow, the past and present would collide under chandelier light. The last sliver of champagne rolled across the marble and disappeared into a crack. Security moved first. 2 men in dark suits stepped to Beatrice's side. Evan broke from a conversation near the bar and hurried forward. But Beatrice didn't move. Her eyes were locked on the pendant at Maya's throat. The room fell into an uncomfortable hush. The string quartet faltered, then stopped entirely. Dozens of Chicago's most powerful people watched an elderly billionaire stare at a server like she'd seen a ghost. Beatrice's voice was barely sound, but it carried. "Where did you get that necklace?" Maya's heart slammed so hard she could feel it in her fingertips. Every gaze in the room slid onto her. Years of foster homes, of being the outsider, of being the one assumed to be wrong before she even spoke. All of it pressed against her chest. "It's mine," she managed. "I've had it since I was a baby." Beatrice shook her head slowly. "That's not possible." She took a step forward. The security guards flinched but didn't stop her. "I had that piece made, in Florence. There are only two. One is on my jacket." She touched her brooch. "The other was buried with my daughter." A ripple of whispers spread like smoke. "Stolen." "It must have been stolen." "How else?" A woman stepped smoothly between Beatrice and Maya, all concern and calculation. Early 50s, sleek black dress, flawless blowout, a face that had learned how to smile without softening. Olivia Langford, widow of Beatrice's nephew Daniel, longtime manager of the Langford Family Corporation. "Aunt Bee," Olivia said, hand light on Beatrice's arm. "Let's not make a scene. I'm sure we can sort this out privately." Beatrice didn't look at her. Her hand lifted, stopping inches from Maya's pendant. "May I?" she whispered. Maya wanted to disappear. She wanted to rip the chain off and run, but the grief in Beatrice's eyes didn't look like anger. It looked like a wound that had never closed. She nodded. Beatrice's fingers touched the pendant, turned it gently, finding the back by memory. The engraved numbers shone faintly under the light. 0531. 2. Beatrice's knees gave out. Evan caught her before she hit the floor. "Get a private room," he ordered. "Now!" 20 minutes later, the gala buzzed on without its hostess, fueled by gossip. Some donors whispered about the scandal. Others pretended nothing had happened. Behind a closed oak door off the main hall, the air was different, thicker. Maya sat on one side of a small conference table, fingers laced so tight her knuckles were white. On the other side, Beatrice. Next to her, Evan. Beside him, Detective Julian Drake, 63, NYPD trained but long since relocated to Chicago, now on private retainer for the Langford family. Deep lines, steady eyes. And Dr. Ijeoma Nwosu, early 40s, Nigerian-American attorney specializing in family reunification and child welfare. Sharp gaze, softer tone. Olivia stood near the corner, arms folded, watching everything. Beatrice spoke first. "I'm not pressing charges," she said, voice firm. "I don't think you stole that necklace. I think I need to understand how you have something that should be in my daughter's grave." Maya swallowed. "I was found outside St. Bartholomew Medical Center," she said, the words worn from repetition. "June 18th, 2002. The necklace was pinned to my blanket. That's all I know." Dr. Nwosu leaned forward. "Do you have any paperwork? Anything from the state? Foster records?" Maya pulled the manila envelope from her bag with trembling hands. "I carry it with me, just in case my life ever suddenly made sense." Beatrice flinched, just a fraction. Dr. Nwosu spread the documents out. Detective Drake read over her shoulder. "Female infant," Ijeoma read, "estimated 3 to 4 days old. Found near ER doors at 6:12 a.m., wrapped in standard hospital blanket. No parents identified. No camera footage." Maya stared at the table. "They named me Ellis after the social worker on duty. I didn't get Maya until a foster mom let me choose a name at 9. Detective Drake flipped to a second page. "There's a note here," he murmured. "Distinguishing feature, small birthmark on left shoulder blade." Maya froze. Beatrice noticed. "What is it?" she asked softly. Maya cleared her throat. "I have a birthmark. Same place. It looks like—" She hesitated. "Like a crooked heart." Dr. Nwosu's eyes flicked to Beatrice. Beatrice stood. "May I see it?" This was insane. Maya knew it was insane, but insanity had walked into the gala wearing a matching brooch. She turned, tugged her collar down just enough. The reddish mark curved across her left shoulder blade. Crooked heart. A sound tore out of Beatrice's chest, half sob, half something wordless and raw. "Rachel had the same mark," she whispered. "My father had it. It's in every medical record. They called it a harmless vascular anomaly. I called it our family stamp." The room felt like it tilted. Detective Drake spoke, voice suddenly all business. "For the record, Mrs. Langford, your daughter Rachel gave birth the night she died, correct?" Beatrice nodded, eyes locked on Maya. 7 months pregnant. They said the baby didn't survive the emergency C-section. I never saw her. They said it would traumatize me." Dr. Nwosu inhaled. "With the necklace match, the date alignment, the birthmark, and the hospital match, we need DNA testing. Immediately." Beatrice looked at Maya, not as a server, not as a stranger, but as someone suspended between two possibilities. "If you'll let us," Beatrice said quietly, "I'll pay for everything. No matter what the test says, you leave this room with dignity. Agreed?" Maya could feel her whole life trembling on a line. "What if I'm wrong?" she whispered. "What if this is just a coincidence?" Beatrice's mouth trembled. "Then you're a young woman with a hard life and a mysterious necklace, and I will still make sure you never worry about rent again." Maya nodded. "Okay," she whispered. "Let's find out." A private lab in downtown Chicago stayed open all night for the right client. They were the right client. Swabs, labels, signatures. A courier walked out with the samples like they were carrying a state secret. While they waited, Detective Drake opened his laptop. "St. Bartholomew Archives, June 2002, he muttered. "Let's see what we were supposed to forget." He read aloud as the others leaned in. "June 15th, 2002, 11:29 p.m. Rachel Langford, 23, admitted following traffic collision. Severe head trauma. Fetal distress noted. 12:58 a.m. Emergency C-section performed. 1:23 a.m. Infant female delivered. 1:26 a.m. Infant declared stillborn. 1:39 a.m. Mother expired due to cerebral hemorrhage." Silence. Then another entry. "June 18th, 2002, 6:12 a.m. Unidentified infant female found near ER entrance by maintenance employee. Estimated age 3 to 4 days. Good health. Distinguishing feature, birthmark left scapular region." Dr. Nwosu leaned back. "3 days after Rachel's baby was declared dead," she said, "at the same hospital, with a family-specific birthmark." Olivia spoke for the first time, tone cool. "Coincidences happen. You're jumping to conclusions." Detective Drake's eyes went flat for a moment. "Coincidences don't usually wear custom Florence silver made in pairs." He pulled up an old digital scan, a jeweler's invoice from Italy. Commissioned May 2001. 1 pendant, 1 brooch. Special engraving, 05.31-02. Beatrice closed her eyes. "We were supposed to pick them up on May 31st, 2002, she said. "A mother-daughter trip. Rachel wanted to show me where she'd lived during her semester abroad." Her voice thinned. "We never made that trip." The test results arrived by secure email less than 12 hours later. No one slept in between. Dr. Nwosu opened the file in Beatrice's study. Her voice stayed professional. Her hands shook. Probability of biological relationship between Beatrice Langford and Maya Ellis. The numbers blurred for a second. She blinked them back into focus. 99, 98%. Maya felt the air leave her lungs. Olivia went gray. Beatrice exhaled like someone who had been underwater for 23 years. They didn't celebrate. Not yet. Detective Drake cleared his throat. We have two major questions, he said. 1. Why did St. Bartholomew record the baby as stillborn if she was alive? 2. Who abandoned her by the ER door instead of returning her to her family? Beatrice's spine straightened. The grief in her gaze hardened into something fierce. Find everyone who touched that birth, every doctor, every administrator, every nurse, every billing clerk. I don't care if they're retired or dead. We're going to know what they did to my granddaughter. They set up a war room in Beatrice's conference suite. Folders, laptops, old paper records, 23 years of dust being blown off secrets. The delivery room team from Rachel's file, Dr. Henry Lowell, OB/GYN, retired, now living in Arizona. Nurse Linda Mabry, surgical nurse, retired to Iowa. Dr. Paul Riggs, anesthesiologist, deceased 2006. Dr. Stephen Caro, hospital administrator, still alive, lives in Miami. Attending physician who signed the stillborn certificate, Dr. Gerard Voss, medical license revoked 2005 for falsifying patient records. Last known address, Jacksonville, Florida. Drake's searches turned up something else. Transfers from Langford Holdings to St. Bartholomew, June 2002, he said. Not through the foundation, through a private corporate account, authorized by Daniel Langford. Olivia stiffened. Daniel handled a lot of business. He's been dead 5 years. He can't defend himself. Drake ignored her. He zoomed in on one transaction. June 20th, 2002, $200,000. Memo line, consulting retainer, S. Caro. Dr. Nwosu's jaw tightened. Hospital administrators don't get consulting retainers from grieving families unless something's deeply wrong. Within 48 hours, Drake had located Nurse Linda Mabry. She appeared on a video call, 70 now, wrinkles etched around worried eyes. I always wondered when this would come back, she said softly. Beatrice leaned toward the camera. Please, just tell us what happened. Linda swallowed. The baby didn't die, she said. She was pink and screaming. 7 pounds, 2 ounces. I wrapped her in a blanket, put her in the warmer. Dr. Lowell said vitals were strong. We were all relieved for a minute. Her eyes slicked with tears. Then Dr. Voss came in. Told us to chart a stillborn, said there'd been a decision. Family didn't want the infant resuscitation extended. It didn't make sense. But he was attending. Drake kept his voice level. Did anyone mention a name? A request? Linda nodded slowly. He said something like, It's what the family wants. They'll handle the rest privately. I tried to argue. He pulled me aside, told me I could be reassigned if I made trouble. Dr. Nwosu's mouth flattened. And 3 days later, June 18th? Linda's voice shook. I was coming off night shift. I saw Dr. Voss in the parking garage, basement level. He was with a woman. Dark hair, red coat, too far to see her face clearly. He handed her something wrapped in a hospital blanket. She inhaled sharply. At the time, I thought maybe it was paperwork. Later, when I heard about the abandoned baby, I realized what I'd seen. I tried to report it to Dr. Caro. He told me I was traumatized and misremembering. Then the letters started. Beatrice's eyes narrowed. What letters? Anonymous. No return address. Saying if I kept talking, they knew where my daughter went to school. Sent pictures of her playground. I transferred hospitals within 6 months. I've lived with the guilt ever since. Drake ended the call gently. Thank you, Ms. Mabry. When the screen went dark, the room buzzed with quiet rage. Evan broke it first. We have a pattern, he said. Money moves, threats, fake documentation. Someone didn't just panic. They planned this. Drake nodded. Dr. Voss is in Florida. I'm going to see him. Before he could leave, another thread dropped onto the table. Beatrice's estate attorney, Margaret Sue, arrived with several boxes. Contracts, wills, trust amendments. She laid out Rachel's estate structure as it had been in 2002. If Rachel's child survived, Margaret explained, the child would have inherited her share of the Langford fortune. Adjusted for today's value, roughly $1.6 billion. Maya's stomach lurched. Margaret flipped to the next document. If there was no surviving heir, Rachel's share reverted to the prior amendment. Secondary beneficiary, Daniel Langford. Olivia's jaw tightened. Daniel ran Langford Holdings for 16 years. I stepped in after cancer took him. You can't imply... Drake clicked to another screen. June 2002. A personal bank account linked to Dr. Stephen Caro received $200,000 from a shell entity controlled by Daniel. July 2002. That shell entity transferred $300,000 to another LLC, registered agent. He turned the screen so everyone could see. A name. Olivia Pierce Langford. Olivia's composure cracked for half a second. That money was legal. Consulting, restructuring, post-trauma funding, you have no idea. Maya's voice cut across hers, surprising even herself. If someone wanted Rachel's baby gone, she said slowly, why not just let her die in the hospital? Why fake a stillborn and then dump her near the ER? Why leave the necklace pinned to the blanket instead of selling it? Silence. Dr. Nwosu answered. Because someone wanted the baby to disappear, but couldn't quite bring themselves to finish the job, she said. They needed deniability. If she was ever found, the necklace would tie her to the Langfords. That's leverage, or guilt, or both. News of the lost Langford heiress hit the media within days. Maya's face, blurred in some reports, clear in others, appeared on every local channel and half the national ones. Some strangers called her lucky. They had no idea what it cost to hear the word granddaughter from a stranger's mouth. That same week, she insisted on going back to her apartment to grab her clothes and textbooks. I'm just running in and out, she told Evan. I can't keep wearing borrowed blazers forever. He offered security. She declined. I need 10 minutes where my life isn't a headline. The stairwell light on her building's third floor was out again. She pushed open her door. The apartment was dark, but something felt off. The air wrong. The kind of silence that has weight. Her fingers brushed the light switch. A hand slammed into her shoulder, driving her into the wall. An arm pinned her across the collarbones. Breath whooshed out of her lungs. A male voice, low and clinical, close to her ear. You've had a run of good luck, he murmured. It's time it ended. He smelled like cigarettes and cheap cologne. Her nursing training kicked in before panic could swallow her. She dropped her weight, twisted, drove her elbow into the soft spot beneath his ribs. He grunted, loosened his grip. She spun, saw his face in the dim light, mid-40s, rough features, scar over his left eyebrow, eyes like dead glass. A knife flashed. They said make it look like a robbery, he said. Personally, I don't care what it looks like. Maya bolted. He lunged. The knife scraped the plaster where her neck had been. She sprinted down the stairs, dodging rusty railings, her heart punching against her ribs. She burst into the front lobby, then onto the sidewalk, shouting. People turned. A woman grabbed her phone. The man stopped at the top of the stairs, saw the witnesses, then melted back into the shadows. 2 hours later, Maya sat in a police station conference room with a blanket around her shoulders. Detective Drake stared at the screen as building security footage played. The attacker's face appeared in grainy detail. Facial recognition flagged him. Name: Keith Mallory, Drake read. Private security contractor. Works for corporate risk firms. Specializes in problem resolution, translation, intimidation, and quiet violence for hire. Evans spoke quietly. Who signed his checks? A finance analyst for Langford Holdings answered that question within the hour. Payment request came through our internal security division, she reported over speakerphone. Approval code matches Olivia's digital signature. 3 days ago. Beatrice's voice dropped into something cold and precise. Have her picked up. Drake held up a placating hand. We'll move, but we need to do this clean. No one escapes on a technicality. Before he could execute that plan, his phone rang. He listened for 30 seconds, his expression shifting from focus to grim. Mallory's dead, he said when he hung up. Single gunshot. Apartment in his name. No sign of forced entry. The word on the scene is suicide. Evans snorted. And I'm the Pope. No, Drake said. You're just the guy who has to tell legal we're dealing with someone who thinks tying up loose ends is a hobby. 2 days later, Detective Drake got another call. This time, the voice on the other end was old and thin, with a faint rasp of oxygen in the background. Detective Drake? My name is Father Miguel Reyes. I serve at St. Agnes Hospice. I've been watching the Langford story on the news. I think I have something you need to hear. Before my heart gives out. Drake's pen stilled. Go on, Father. In 2018, Daniel Langford came to me for confession, Reyes said. He told me he was haunted by something he'd done when his cousin Rachel died. He was terrified the truth would surface after he passed, but more terrified it wouldn't. He asked me to break the seal of confession if the truth ever emerged, and he signed a notarized statement permitting it. Drake's pulse picked up. What did he confess? That he helped someone make Rachel's baby disappear, the priest said. He provided the money. She provided the plan. Drake's hand tightened on the pen. She? A close friend of Rachel's, Reyes said. Someone she called a sister. A doctor with deep connections at St. Bartholomew. Her name was, he swallowed, Dr. Lila Morgan. The room went silent when Drake relayed the name to the team. Beatrice sat down like someone had pulled the ground from under her. Lila, she whispered. That's impossible. Lila lived in our house for a year in college. Rachel's best friend, maid of honor. She held my hand at the funeral. Drake's cursor flew. He pulled up a file. Dr. Lila Morgan, he read. Now, 46. Psychiatrist, posh office on the Gold Coast, media darling for her work on resilience coaching. He dug deeper. In 2001, she married hedge fund manager Marcus Carter. Divorce finalized early 2002. Prenup left her with $250,000 and massive legal fees. Same year, Rachel co-signed a $2 million loan in her name. Withdrawal authorized without the foundation board's approval. Margaret's eyes narrowed. If Rachel's heir survived, that loan would eventually be absorbed as part of the inheritance. If not, it would be written off quietly as an internal loss. Drake scrolled. 2 weeks after Rachel died, Marcus Carter drowned in a boating accident near Milwaukee. Investigated. Ruled accidental. But the will left everything to Lila. Net worth at the time, $40 million. Dr. Nwosu did the math out loud. $2 million from Rachel, $40 from Marcus, plus whatever silent payouts came from Daniel and Olivia. That's a powerful financial motivation. Maya stared at the screen. So my mom's best friend, she said slowly, helped fake my death, sold me to abandonment, and murdered her husband because my existence got in the way of her payday? No one had a comforting answer. They didn't arrest Dr. Lila Morgan immediately. Detective Drake called her first. Dr. Morgan, this is Detective Julian Drake. We're reviewing the events around Rachel Langford's death and her child. We'd like you to come in to answer some questions. A pause. When she spoke, her voice was smooth, practiced. I heard about Maya, she said. It's incredible. I knew Rachel would be smiling wherever she is. Of course I'll help. Rachel was my dearest friend. Her tone was warm. Her pulse, Drake suspected, was not. They scheduled the interview for 2 p.m., 2 days later, in a secure conference room. Lila walked in 10 minutes early, mid-40s. Dark hair and a sleek bob, navy pantsuit, expensive tan. A high-powered attorney walked in with her, Douglas Wayman, a name Drake recognized from corporate scandal cases. In the room, Drake, Dr. Nwosu, Evan, Margaret, Maya, and Beatrice. Lila's gaze snagged on Beatrice. For a heartbeat, guilt, or fear, flashed in her eyes. Then the mask reassembled. "Bae," she said, voice soft. "You look tired. You shouldn't be dragged through this after everything." Beatrice didn't stand. "Don't call me B," she said. Lila's smile flickered. They sat. Drake hit record. "Dr. Morgan, were you at St. Bartholomew the night Rachel Langford died?" "Of course," Lila said. Her hands were neatly folded. "I rode in the ambulance. Rachel called me after the accident. I held her hand until they wheeled her away. I stayed with Beatrice in the waiting room." "Did you see the baby?" Drake asked. She shook her head. "No, the doctor said she didn't make it. They told us it was quick." Drake slid a stack of papers across the table. "These are phone logs," he said. 13 calls between your phone and Dr. Stephen Caro the week before Rachel died. Why were you in contact with the hospital administrator?" Lila skimmed the pages, expression carefully neutral. "I don't recall the specifics," she said. "It was a long time ago. I was advocating for Rachel's prenatal care. You know how hospitals can be with scheduling and VIP treatment?" "We also have bank records," Drake said. "Rachel co-signed a $2 million loan for you in April 2002. There's no record of repayment." Lila's lawyer finally spoke. "Dr. Morgan doesn't have to answer to speculative financial insinuations." Drake ignored him. "We have testimony from Dr. Gerard Voss," he said. "He admitted to falsifying the stillborn certificate, said he was paid $100,000 in cash, said a woman with a polished, European-tinged accent coordinated the plan and told him to report the baby as dead." Lila smiled thinly. "That could be anyone. Chicago is full of educated women with nice vowels." Drake pressed play on a small recorder. A woman's voice crackled through the speakers. "Tell Caro it's done." Lila's fingers twitched. Drake stopped the tape. "Voicemail left on Voss's phone in June 2002, he said. Follow-up call deletion failed, so it saved both messages. Forensic audio estimates a 91% probability that this voice matches yours." Lila's lawyer leaned in. "We dispute the methodology." But Drake wasn't finished. "We have Father Miguel Reyes," he continued. "He has a notarized statement from Daniel Langford authorizing him to break confession secrecy if the truth about the baby ever surfaced. In that confession, Daniel states that you approached him with a plan to quietly erase Rachel's child so his inheritance wouldn't be diluted and your debts could be cleared." Lila went very still. Beatrice watched her like someone studying a poisonous snake. "We reopened Marcus Carter's boating case," Drake added. "We found a mechanic who tampered with the safety equipment for $50,000. He identified you as the woman who hired him." Margaret slid a photo across the table. Marina security footage. Lila in a red coat speaking to the mechanic. Wayman whispered urgently to her. Lila sat straight. For the first time, her composure cracked. "You all needed a villain," she said quietly. "So you built one." Drake didn't blink. "No," he said. "You built yourself a fortune on a grave and an abandoned baby." Beatrice spoke then, voice low and lethal. "Why, Lila?" she asked. "We took you in when your family couldn't. Rachel loved you. You stood next to her at her wedding. Why?" Lila's jaw clenched. "Because she had everything," she snapped. "And she was going to throw it away. Billions poured into kids who'd never send a thank you card. You call it charity, I call it waste. Marcus cheated and walked away rich. Rachel was about to become patron saint of lost causes with money she never earned. Meanwhile, I had nothing." Her lawyer grabbed her arm. "Lila," she shook him off. "You want the truth?" she said, eyes bright with rage. "Fine. Yes, I talked to Daniel. Yes, we set up the payments. Yes, I told Voss what to do. I told them the baby would destroy everything and no one would suffer if she just never existed." Maya stared. "I existed," she said, voice small but razor sharp. "I just existed alone." Lila looked at her. No remorse, just calculation. "Look at you now," she said. "You're an heiress. You'll never worry about rent again. You're welcome." Beatrice stood. Her hands shook, but her voice didn't. "Dr. Lila Morgan," she said, "I will spend every remaining breath making sure you never walk free again." Drake didn't bother with theatrics. "Dr. Morgan," he said, "you are under arrest for conspiracy to commit kidnapping, fraud, and murder." The trial didn't restore time, but it did something else. The courtroom hummed with cameras and whispers as Judge Ramona Ortiz, 62, took the bench. No nonsense, 2 decades on the bench, a reputation for cutting through theatrics. The prosecution laid out the case like a carefully built structure. Financial records, phone logs, hospital documentation, witness testimony. Nurse Linda Mabry told her story on the stand, hands tremoring but voice steady. "The baby was alive," she said. "Crying, pink, healthy. I changed the chart to stillborn because my job and my daughter's safety were threatened. I've regretted it every day since." Dr. Gerard Voss testified under full immunity, looking like he'd aged a century. "I took the money," he said. "I wrapped the baby in a blanket, pinned the necklace back on her, carried her to a maintenance closet like she was a parcel. I told myself she'd be given to a good family. It was easier than admitting I was throwing her away." The mechanic confirmed he'd tampered with Marcus Carter's boat at Lila's request. Father Reyes appeared via video link from hospice, oxygen tube in his nose, eyes fierce. Daniel Langford was consumed with guilt, he said. But he was also a coward. Lila was the architect. He was the wallet. Then it was Maya's turn. She sat in the witness chair, palms damp. Heart pounding loud enough she was sure the microphone would pick it up. The prosecutor's tone was gentle. "Miss Ellis, can you tell the court about your childhood?" 7 foster homes, nights she slept with her shoes on in case she had to run. Social workers who were kind, others who weren't. The sting of the word unwanted stamped on every file. "Did you know where you came from?" the prosecutor asked. "No," Maya said. "Just that I'd been left outside a hospital with this necklace and no answers." "How did you end up here in this courtroom as a Langford?" Maya touched the pendant. Because a woman at a gala recognized something she'd lost, she said. And because we refused to stop asking why. She looked at Lila. You didn't just steal my inheritance, she said softly. You stole my story. You stole 23 years I could have had with my mother's family. You sentenced me to loneliness because numbers in your bank account mattered more to you than a baby in an incubator. The defense tried to chip away at her credibility, at everyone's. Tried to paint the money transfers as innocent, the voicemail as ambiguous, the priest as misremembering. It didn't land. When Judge Ortiz delivered her verdict, the courtroom felt like it was holding its breath. Dr. Lila Morgan, she said, you used your intelligence and access to orchestrate a conspiracy of astonishing cruelty. You corrupted medical professionals, falsified records, enabled murder, and stole a child's life because you believed you deserved more than everyone else. She paused. I sentence you to life in prison without the possibility of parole. Additional sentences fell like gavel blows. Dr. Stephen Caro, 18 years. Dr. Gerard Voss, 10 years, medical license permanently revoked. Olivia Langford, 25 years for conspiracy and attempted murder by proxy via Mallory. Lila didn't cry. She just stared at Maya, eyes empty, as if willing some last shred of power to remain. It didn't. Justice didn't rewind time. It didn't give Beatrice back her daughter. It didn't give Maya a childhood with bedtime stories instead of case numbers, but it made something very clear. What happened was not an accident. It was a crime, and it had consequences. 6 months later, the Langford estate felt different. The staff moved with less tension. Maya lived in the guest house, not the main mansion, her boundary, not Beatrice's preference. Beatrice tried to overcorrect. Clothes, cars, trips. Maya pushed back. I want to finish nursing school, she said. On my own work. Not on a platinum card. They argued sometimes, then apologized. Then tried again. At Maya's nursing school graduation, Beatrice sat in the front row, a carefully folded handkerchief clenched in her fist. When Maya walked across the stage, diploma in hand, the applause felt louder than it should have. Backstage, Beatrice pulled her into a fierce hug. Rachel would be so proud of you, she whispered into Maya's hair. I wish I'd known her, Maya said. Beatrice pulled back, eyes wet. You know her more than you think, she said. You have her stubbornness, her sense of justice, her impossible heart. They visited Rachel's grave together once a month, always on the 12th. Beatrice brought white lilies. Maya traced the etched name with her fingertips. Hi, Mom, she would whisper each time. I'm here. I'm okay. We're okay now. Beatrice didn't sob at the grave anymore. She talked, told Rachel about Maya's classes, about new scholarships, about the board meetings where they argued about the best way to change the foster system. The Langford Children's Initiative restructured completely after the trial. Behavioral health programs, legal clinics for family reunification, mental health support for kids in care, college scholarships. Maya sat at the board table now, not as a token story, but as a professional. She presented slides filled with data, not emotion. Every year, thousands of kids age out of foster care with no support, she said in one meeting. We can be the difference between homelessness and stability, between slipping through the cracks and building a future. The board approved her proposals unanimously. Talia became the first scholarship recipient for graduate nursing school. You did this, Talia said, hugging her. We did this, Maya corrected. No one climbs out alone. The ripple effects went far beyond the Langfords. The state legislature passed the Maya Ellis Act, mandating DNA cataloging for abandoned infants and cross-checking against missing persons and family databases. St. Bartholomew overhauled its protocols. Infant deaths now required independent review and dual signatures. Detective Drake headed a task force that uncovered a dozen other suspicious cases in hospitals statewide. Dr. Nwosu wrote a book on medical corruption and child welfare that became required reading in nursing and medical ethics courses. Maya received a civil settlement, a multi-million-dollar package from the hospital, the involved doctors, and Lila's seized assets. She donated nearly all of it. "I don't want blood money in my bank account," she told reporters. "I want it in programs that make sure no one else gets thrown away on a technicality." 1 year after the gala, Maya walked through the halls of St. Bartholomew Medical Center, this time in navy scrubs and an ID badge that read, Maya Ellis, RN, NICU. Beatrice had fought the idea. "Not there," she'd pleaded. "Anywhere but there. That place stole you." Maya squeezed her hand. "That place also saved a lot of babies who did make it home," she said. "I want to help write a different ending for someone else." She cared for tiny lives in incubators, reassured, terrified parents, charted vitals with the meticulous focus of someone who knew what it meant to be unnamed. On her wrist, a new piece of jewelry caught the fluorescent light, a bracelet with a small compass charm. The engraving on the underside read, Maya and Beatrice, found. At lunch, Beatrice brought slightly burnt sandwiches to the hospital cafeteria. They ate at a corner table. For once, no one stared at them as the billionaire and the heiress. They were just two women sharing food. Maya touched her necklace. "You know what's wild?" she said. "Many things," Beatrice replied dryly. "Be specific." "I spent my whole life feeling lost," Maya said. "Like I was drifting, waiting to bump into a place I belonged. Turns out I wasn't lost. I was stolen. There's a difference." Beatrice's eyes shone. "And I spent my life feeling incomplete," she said. "I didn't know what was missing, but my heart did." They sat there for a moment in quiet alignment. No cameras, no judges, no lawyers. Just a grandmother and a granddaughter learning each other in real time. Maya Ellis grew up with a file instead of a family and a necklace instead of a history. The world told her she was abandoned, unwanted, forgettable. But a single moment under crystal chandeliers revealed a different truth. Her mother's best friend stole her life for money. Doctors and administrators sold their integrity for a payoff. A system designed to protect children decided she was easier to discard than to fight for. But one pendant, a compass wrapped in a crescent, became a key. It unlocked secrets buried for 23 years, exposed corruption in shining institutions, and put powerful people behind bars. Justice didn't erase the years she spent alone. It didn't resurrect her mother. But it did something vital. It proved that what happened to her was not her fault. She wasn't unwanted. She was stolen. Now, the same girl who once slept under peeling paint and buzzing streetlights walks hospital corridors as a nurse, fights for kids like the one she used to be, and sits at tables where decisions get made instead of being made about her in silence. These stories remind us that evil doesn't always show up in masks and alleyways. Sometimes it smiles in family photos. Sometimes it signs hospital forms. Sometimes it calls itself what's best for everyone. But they also remind us of something else. Truth is stubborn. It leaks through cracks. It glints off old metal. It refuses to stay buried forever. If Maya's story touched you, share it. Comment with your own journey through injustice, identity, or feeling unseen. Don't forget to subscribe to Balk Stories, Alltimes, for more stories of people who refuse to let power, money, or lies decide their worth. Because somewhere out there, another kid with a file and a question is waiting to learn they were never trash. They were treasure someone tried to hide.